Hello everyone. Okay, in this lesson today, we're going to be looking at the first electoral system. This is the system that we use to elect MPs to the House of Commons. It's known as first past the post. If you're writing the exam FPTP, then that is perfectly fine. So what we're going to do in this video, first of all, I need to explain how it works to you all. Again, some students find this quite difficult. So normally when I do it in class, I have to stop and re-go over it again. Obviously, this has been on a recording, so you might have to rewind me a bit, if that's the right phrase, to go over it again. If you do get stuck and want me to explain it to you in person, then you obviously you have to wait till you're next in college. Okay, so let's explain this. As I say, it's used for voting MPs in Westminster. Okay, ignore the bottom bit just for now. With this system, some of the key features are every individual who is eligible to vote gets one vote. Okay, not every voting system has this. Okay, it's used to elect MPs to Westminster, as I said before. And they have single member constituencies. What this means is there are 650 seats in the House of Commons, 650 elected people. So the country is divided into 650. And each of these areas are known as constituencies. So, for example, there are roughly about 80,000 people per constituency. So, for example, Nuneaton and its surrounding area has about 80,000 people. So that is a constituency called Nuneaton. Hinckley and Bosworth, which is Hinckley, Bosworth and some of those little villages in that part of Leicestershire, they also make up between them about 80,000 people. That is a constituency. Coventry is obviously quite a big place, and that's split into three. There's three constituencies in Coventry. North Warwickshire, which is Bedworth, and all the way over to Coleshill, all those little places in between. That is also between them 80,000 people and is a constituency. And each constituency, each area has one MP, a single member who represents it in the House of Commons. So Nuneaton has one member of Parliament, which is Marcus Jones at the moment. Hinckley and Bosworth has got one member of Parliament whose name I can't remember. It's called Dr. something. Each of those seats in Coventry have got one member, etc., etc. Now, to win an election, to win that seat for that particular area, i.e. to become the MP for Nuneaton or the MP for Hinckley, you need to get one more vote than your closest rival. So let's say, for example, Nuneaton has 80,000 voters. Let's say that there's three candidates who stand for the election, and let's say that Marcus Jones, the Conservative candidate, gets, I have to do some very quick maths now, gets 26,001 votes. Okay, let's say Labour comes second and they get 26,000 votes. And let's say the Liberal Democrats come third and they get 10,000 votes. Okay, so 26,001, 26,000, 10,000. So Marcus Jones would win because he's got one more vote or more than his nearest rival. He got 26,001 votes, Labour got 26,000 votes. So he would have won that seat with a majority of one. Now, you might be able to quickly work out that more people will have voted against Marcus Jones, i.e. Labour's 26,000 plus the 10,000 that voted for the Liberal Democrats, but Marcus Jones still got one more vote than his nearest rival, and therefore he won the seat. Okay, I hope that kind of makes sense. It's got a very posh name, this voting system. It's actually, its official name is the Simple Plurality System. Okay, and as I said before, the country split into 650, and whichever party gets a majority of 650, i.e. 650 divided by 2 plus 1, becomes the government. And the more seats they get above that majority, 650 divided by 2, the bigger the majority the government has. Now, in reality, it's actually a bit less than 650 divided by 2 because the Speaker doesn't count and a few other people as well. But to become the government, you have to win the most seats in the House of Commons, basically. Okay, so that's how the system operates. I hope that kind of makes sense. Okay, so this is the results in 2017 in Nuneaton. Now, yes, I should have perhaps put the 2019 ones on really, but anyway, it kind of makes the point. So we can see here that Marcus Jones got 23,755, Labour's Phil Johnson 19,016, Craig Carpenter 1,619, etc, etc, etc. Now, Marcus Jones did actually get an absolute majority, 51.6% of the vote. So even if all these other people hadn't stood and it had just been Conservative and Labour, Marcus Jones would still have won this particular seat. However, in the previous election of 2015, he won it by fewer votes, and therefore he fell below that 50%. But it doesn't matter, because he still had one more vote or more than his closest rival. Okay, so I hope you kind of get how the system works. Now, there are certain advantages to first past the post and certain disadvantages. And these are arguments you could use for exam questions which you like to get on first past the post. Exam questions are basically going to be things like, evaluate the view that they should change the voting system for Westminster, or evaluate the view that first past the post is the most effective voting system. Something like that. That's the type of question which you're likely to get. And so you need to know what's good about the voting system and what is bad about the voting system. So we'll do the good bits first. So firstly, it normally results in a very clear winner. Okay, most governments in Britain have been single party governments, i.e. the Labour Party have gained more seats than any other party and therefore formed the government, or the Conservatives have gained more seats than any other party and therefore form the government. And because of this, there's a very clear mandate for that party. In other words, that party had a manifesto with a list of promises in there. They got the most votes, they got the most seats in the House of Commons. Therefore, it's very clear what they're going to do. It's all written down in that manifesto. If you end up with countries or situations where you have two parties in governments, you then tend to see some horse trading takes place between the two different parties, and some promises get ditched, and that can cause problems. Just look at the Liberal Democrats, for example, when they formed that government with David Cameron. So, this shows the size of government majorities in Westminster since 1945. I've missed off 2019 and 2017, okay, which is remiss of me. I need to update this really. But 2019, that blue line would go up to about 80, okay. You can see here that most governments in Britain have had clear majorities. So, for example, in 1997, the Blair government had around about just under 180 majority. What that means is that they got 650 divided by 2, which formed the majority, plus an extra 179. So they had a really big majority in that parliament, and again they did in 2001. The Conservatives, look at 1983, they had a very big majority. There hasn't been that many times when governments have had very small ones. So 1950, 64, the mid-1970s, and then more recently, 2017 with Theresa May, for example. But usually, governments have clear majorities, which seems being an advantage of first past the post, because it means that the government has won the election, they've clearly won it, they've got a clear list of promises, they can now get on with them. Quite decisive, I suppose, is one way to look at it. Okay, if you have coalitions, you can get all sorts of problems about who do you blame if something goes wrong. I mean, the Liberal Democrats took a lot of blame, didn't they, in the 2010 coalition, and I've coloured that in this kind of, I don't know, it's not blue and it's not red, it's kind of a greeny colour for the coalition that was in place there. Okay, and as I said before about coalitions, it's not quite big enough this on here, coalitions tend to lead to deals being done after the election. Okay, and as I said before, that can lead to all sorts of problems sometimes. So one advantage to first past the post is you get one clear winner, we know who's the government, and they can now crack on and get on with their agenda. Right, other advantages. there's a clear link between the MP and his or her constituency. So because there's only one MP per area, per constituency, whether you voted for that person or not, you can quite easily find out who it is. So, for example, in Nuneaton, the MP is Marcus Jones. He's got a website. Here it is. He had surgeries, and that doesn't mean he kind of performs heart surgery on people. What that means is he has meetings with constituents. He'll have meetings all over Nuneaton where if you've got a problem or an issue or you want to discuss something with him, you can go and speak to Marcus Jones, and he can, take up your case issue with government ministers or whatever. The same is true if you live in Hinckley, the same is true if you live in North Warwickshire, wherever. So there's a very clear link. Everyone should know who their MP is, and if they don't do, they can quite easily find out. And again, that makes it really clear for people to know who their representative is. Okay, it usually leads to quick results as well. So usually, and there's David Dimbleby on election night coverage in 2017, we normally know who's won the election and who the next government is going to be by about, 3 o'clock in the morning after polling day. So polling day is on a Thursday. We very usually know by Friday morning exactly who is going to be our next Prime Minister. Job sorted. There were two exceptions recently. One was 2010, where no party won a majority, and so there was some kind of horse trading that took place up with the Liberal Democrats. Labour tried to have a chat to the Lib Dems. The Conservatives had a chat with the Lib Dems, and after about 10 days, it became clear that the coalition was going to be formed between the Conservatives and Liberal Democrats. In 2017 as well, it was quite clear the Conservatives had won, but they didn't have that big majority. So they had to, it was a couple of days of uncertainty whilst they tried to patch up some kind of deal with the DUP party. But there are exceptions. Think about 2019. No, we all knew the Conservatives had won before they'd even fully counted all the votes. It was quite clear they'd won by about 10 o'clock after polling, and then that was confirmed, wasn't it, by about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So that is the usual situation in Britain. Okay, just aware of the time, so we can get another one in before we run out of time. Another advantage of first past the post is it excludes extremist parties. Okay, here's the BNP. Why this happens is extremist parties tend not to get many votes. So they might come fourth in every single constituency, for example, but as long as they don't win a seat, as long as they don't get an absolute majority, then they're never going to get any MPs into Parliament. And many argue that one good thing about first past the post is it does make life more difficult for small parties. And some of those small parties might be quite extreme, like the British National Party. And therefore it is good that we exclude them from the House of Commons and from Parliament. This is not the case with proportional systems, by the way. But even then, some said, you could argue this is a good thing that extremist parties don't get elected into Parliament, but you might say, well, is this actually good for democracy? Because if people have voted for them, it is not a massive number of people. If a section of society has voted for the BNP or voted for some other extremist party, then surely in a democracy they should be able to have their views heard in that Parliament. It's an argument which is made on that. So, but the advantage of first past the post by the supporters of first past the post is it does exclude extremist parties, and therefore we should keep first past the post. Right, I'm going to run out of free time doing this, so I will do another video on finish off the advantages and go into the disadvantages of first past the post in a short while.